All right, thanks everybody. Couple of quick things real quick. So first of all, thanks for being here before a long holiday weekend. It's awesome to see everybody. We're gonna try something tonight. We're gonna be recording this. I spent most of the day trying to figure out how to actually do that and make that happen. So we're gonna give it a shot. We've got some microphones. When we get to the QA section, I have a microphone. It's gonna be a little weird because nothing's actually projected, but if we don't have that, it won't pick up in the recording for later. So we'll make sure to post a link to that recording on Meetup. So thanks everyone for being here. As you know, our presenter tonight is the wonderful Weston Goodwin. Day job is a developer at the Department of Taxation, but he's a pretty okay guy despite that. Specializes in writing database tools. You guys are going to see some of that, of course, into anthropology, so that's a cool conversation you can have afterwards. Been in Richmond for 10 years. We're happy to have you. Thank you for being my guinea pig for the first time recording. You can see he's got all kinds of microphones clipped to him, kind of like, part cyborg, but super appreciative. Other quick topic, we of course will be having a presentation next month. I think we're booked through August for speakers. If you want to present, please let us know. We're open to just about anything. You want to try your data-related comedy routine? Cool. You want to do a panel? Totally fine. You got a jig, like a dance you want to do? Hey, we'll check it out, no problem. We just want to keep this going. We think it's really important to be in person. We are having a blast with that. So yeah, thanks everyone for coming. I think that's it. So without further ado, Weston.
Thank you. Oh, he's a tough act to follow, but I'll try. All right, so today my presentation is on a SQL simulator, and what it does is it simulates the execution of SQL commands. Why I created it? Because of anxiety. Whenever I need to update production, there's always a part of me that thinks that, this SQL may not do exactly what I think it's going to do, and it causes me a lot of anxiety over that. Because anytime you make an error in production, it has to be fixed right now. Do not pass go, do not collect $200. It absolutely must be fixed. If you want to go to lunch, you want to go on vacation, you might as well forget it. Mistakes are public. So a lot of the places that I've worked, we have what we call database change request system. So we have to get approvals from our managers, and then it's got to go to the DBAs, and they're the ones that actually implement it. So whenever it fails, it's all these people know that I made a mistake. And then, I had one boss who used to jump down my back whenever I made mistakes, which caused the anxiety that I now have. And, as IT professionals, we like to avoid resume regeneration events. So, you get too many of these and you might find yourself unemployed. Okay, by a show of hands, how many people have made a mistake with SQL commands when updating a production database? Don't raise your hand if your boss is here. Oops. That was supposed to go in the other way. Sorry about that. Hopefully that won't cause anybody any resume regeneration events. But in case it does, we got Brock here who's a recruiter. He'll be glad to help you out. Okay, by a show of hands, how many people would like to avoid making mistakes in production? All right. So we're going to have a therapy session. There's no judgment here. How did you feel the moment you realized you messed up? Does anybody want to share?
Awful.
Awful?
I felt why did you guys give me this task in the first place? It shouldn't have had the power. Who entered the state?
All right. Yeah, like I said, I always feel like my job is on the line. It feels like I'm mixing something up to put in a nuclear reactor, like a new chemical, and I'm going to put it in here, and I think for the most part it's going to do what it's going to do, but it always feels like there's some random element to the whole thing. And then the second question is, how long did it take you to clean up your worst mistake?
At least a couple days, probably. A rollback. It's been a while now, and I think I mostly walled that area off.
Okay.
To retain my sanity, but yeah.
Documentation.
Right. Yeah, and then obviously, all the paperwork you got to do, right, to fill out, why it happened, and you got to put the person's name there, so that they keep it on their, their list there. All right. So, what does SQL Simulator do, and how does it do it? So the first thing it does is it analyzes your SQL file using static code analysis. So for people that are unfamiliar with static code analysis, this is basically like a tool set that allows me to write code to analyze other people's code. You probably use it all the time, you just don't realize it, like whenever you compile a program. So the compiler has to read your source files, and then it has to output, like, in the case of a compiler, like, you know, the bytecode or your binary data or whatever it's going to do with it. So I use static code analysis to read the SQL file, and then what I do is I create a simulated database from the source database with only the affected tables and rows. And then the third thing that I do is I execute your SQL file against the simulated database. All right. So the setup of this tool is only like 5 minutes. You need to download the software to your PC. You just unzip the software, it has no installer. And what you want to do is create an empty or a blank schema in your dev database. And that's where the simulation occurs. And then you configure your data sources. So it's basically those 4 steps is all you need to get started. All right, so now I'm going to move to the live presentation of this tool. I'll go through a few scenarios. Okay, and it looks like I'm going to have to move. All right, so this is the tool here, and let me see. I'm just waiting on a couple of the things to boot up. Now, because I thought we set this for, I thought we set it for Mimic.
Yeah, try it real quick. Whoop. There we go. Got back into extend. I bet your PowerPoint overwrote. Try that. Hey.
Okay, cool. And let me make sure that this is here. Okay. All right. So let me see. So the first project I'm going to do is just a simple, very simple SQL, and we'll go through like how the tool works. Let me see. So in this database, I have, on this database server, I have 4 different databases. I have a development database, a model office, production, and a UAT. And so the simulated database is set up in my dev environment, and right now there are no tables there. So I'm going to run this tool, and I'll talk about this SQL file. So this first example is I'm just creating a backup table. I'm just creating a backup table from the colors table, and I'm basing some of that off of what's in the products table. So let me see if it's done. All right. So it tells you so when it's done, it tells you SQL Simulator has been completed. And we'll see like the source database name and the simulated database name, and it says line 2, and the results are okay. All right. So if I go out here to the development database, you'll now see that there are 3 tables out here. And so it copied, like I said, it read the SQL file and it made a copy of the what's in model office, and it made it in our dev environment. And so if you look at the table, you'll see it just only has a couple records in there. It doesn't copy the entire thing. So this basically lets you see, you know, what the results of your SQLs would be without actually executing it against like a production database or any other type of database. All right. So that's overall how it works. Does anybody have any questions about that? No? Okay.
I have a question.
Sure.
Does it work with Oracle or like other types of databases?
Yes. So right now it only works with Oracle and SQL Server. My goal is to add all of them eventually, but that takes a lot of time and effort. Let me see. Okay, so so once you're done like reviewing the data and making sure that the SQLs are doing what you think they should do, you'll want to destroy the session. And that just basically goes in and wipes out everything based upon your SQL file. So if I go back here and I refresh it, now it's empty, okay? So now we're gonna go to another example. And I'm gonna pull this up and I'm gonna start the session and talk about this. So the first thing you'll notice on this one is this comment. And what that comment does is it tells the system that it's expecting one row to be deleted based on the SQL. So, whenever it does its simulation, it comes back and tells you if those rows will match up or not, right? So in this instance, I'm deleting from a table. I'm basically doing a delete statement, and I have like a subquery on that, all right? So let's see if it's done. Okay, so in this situation, it said there was an error that occurred. 1 second, let me get rid of this. So the rows affected by this SQL were 1,006, which are all the records in that table. But I was only expecting one record to be deleted. Can anybody tell me why this simple statement here deleted all the records and not just the one? Anybody want to take a guess at that?
Holiday name was like a primary key or something?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Is holiday underscore name like a primary key or something?
No. All right, I'll show you. Unless anybody else wants to take a guess.
Is holiday name a column in there?
Yes, it is. All right, so let me do select star so I don't delete my data. All the records in my table. Let me see. Select star from sales.
Do you not use null for blank names? Is it empty character string?
Mm-mm.
All right, I'll shut up.
Okay, so I'm going to do this. So we see that if I do a select statement, right, it comes up with 1,006 records. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to run that, do the subquery, right? I'm just going to highlight that and see what happens when I run that. Well, isn't that interesting? Sales date is not a column on the calendar, but yet SQL Server still tries to execute this. So what happens is sales date is a column on the sales table. It's not a column on the calendar table. So if you use a column from your outer query in your inner query, it basically evaluates the statement to mean this. Let me see. So that's essentially what it does. And so that's why it selects all of the records in that table. Now imagine if you had run that query in production. That would definitely be a resume regeneration event, right? So, so anyway, so this is why it's really important to be able to run these simulations of what's going to occur so you can make sure that it's doing what you think it will do, because the compiler is not going to catch that. All right. Any questions about that before I move on? Nope. All right. Let me see. Hold on 1 second. Let me go back and destroy that. All right.
They called it destroy instead of delete.
You know, I wasn't really sure how to name it. If it sounds a little bad, like, you know, you're destroying the world, I suppose I could see, you know, I could see I might need to change that, so. All right, let me see. And my next one is this guy here. All right, so in this one, oops, I hit destroy session. I meant to hit data sources. Just hold on one moment. It should be done. Okay. So in this one, I'm going to run this particular query against 3 different databases. I'm going to run it against Model Office, UAT, and production. And what I want to do is verify if it's going to work the same way across all the different databases I have, right? Let me see. So I want to pull this up. I'll talk about it. And that one does take a little while to run. Okay, so in this particular example, again, I'm going to create a backup table here, and then I'm going to update that particular table, and I'm going to change the value of a column. I'm going to set, based on the color ID is 4, I'm going to set the color name to orange, okay? And so again, like I said, I'm going to run this against production, UAT, Model Office, because I want to see if it's going to work the same way across all of them. Now, just out of curiosity, okay, it ran. Okay, so the report came back okay. So against production, those 2 lines ran. Model Office, they were okay. And UAT, that's okay. Now what I want to do is go out and look at the simulated database. Now in this particular example, I have 3 different schemas that this simulation is for. So I have a simulator for Model Office, production, and UAT. And when I say simulator, those are just basically empty schemas. There's nothing in them. There's nothing special about it other than they're just empty. So we're going to check Model Office. And in particular, I'm interested in this backup table because I want to make sure that my backup table worked. So in Model Office, my backup table got all the records it's supposed to. Let's look out in UAT. UAT is good. All right, let's see what's going on in production. So it doesn't work in production. Anybody want to guess why? So this particular SQL works this backup table works just fine, Model Office, UAT, but does not work in production. Okay. All right, so let me see. I want to look at the products table. So in Model Office, I want to see what the products table is. Okay, that looks fine. I'm going to look at the products table in production to see what the difference is. Aha, there's a difference. And the difference is production has a null value in one of the records. So, so what happens is if you do a subquery and you're using the not in operator, if anything's a null, it basically nulls out the whole thing. So again, that's another example of, you want to make sure that, again, things are going to work the way you think they're going to work without actually executing it against that database. All right. So let me see. Got a couple more here. And I'm going to destroy the session. Now, okay, that didn't take as long as I thought. All right, so my next one is going to be two developers. All right, I'm going to run this and I'll talk about this. So now, in this particular example, we have 2 different developers that are making a change to the database, and their change needs to go at the same time. All right, so you have developer A, they got a requirement that they needed to alter the production table. They needed to add some new tables. They needed to add some new columns to the products table. And developer B, they're basically needing to copy some data from the products table into a plastics products table. So they need to run this script every so often to update this plastic products table. All right, so what we want to do is see if we run their SQLs together, is what developer A doing, will that have any effect on what developer B tries to do? All right, and this time we have a problem. So the developer A SQL file worked, which was this products, we're doing an alter table on the products table, but developer B's SQL did not work. Column name or number of supplied values does not match table definition, all right? And the reason for this is because, and let me pull it up, the products table, let's do a refresh. The products table has these 5 columns, and we're adding 2 more to it. And so it fails because what this tries to do, so this, when you do a select star, that selects all the columns on the table, all right? However, the plastic products table only has these 3 columns. So I've added 2 new columns, and then I'm trying to do a select into star into plastic products, but plastic products doesn't have those columns, so it's going to fail. All right. And then we got one more here, and I'm going to destroy this. Are there any questions about that? Okay. Let me see. Project. All right. Let's see, I need this. All right, so this last example is a simple insert statement. I'm going to insert into the department table a couple values, and I'm going to do this against production, and I want to see what happens if I simulate the result. All right, and I thought I hit start session, but I guess I didn't. Now let me close this out. Okay, and when I run it, it told me a violation of primary key because that key already exists in production. There's one more thing I want to point out about this particular SQL is that even though there was only one SQL or one table listed in the SQL file, the simulator brought down 5 different tables, okay? And the reason for that is because of the foreign keys, right? Because you gotta, whenever you set this stuff up, you gotta make sure you got all the foreign keys associated with a particular table if there are any. So it gets the foreign keys, but it only gets the records associated with the key from the initial table. So it will not pull down all of the records unless you don't have a where clause or something like that. All right. So that was the last example, and I just have a couple of things to go over. Are there any other questions that you guys have? Yes, sir.
Does it pull down the entire production table?
No, it does not. So it's based off, so it only pulls the affected tables and rows by your query. So if you don't have a where clause, it will pull everything. If you have a where clause, it will only pull what's in your where clause.
So the error statement that's up there, is that typically what's returned with SQL Server, or are there kind of like added detail?
No, that's from SQL Server.
Okay.
So Oracle will have a different, whatever its error message is.
Yeah, nice.
Are there ways to supply like a limit to how many rows that you want to get pulled down? Like your production tables, 100,000 rows or something like that?
You mean without a where clause?
Hey, Weston, can you repeat the question?
Oh, I'm sorry.
You're good?
Your question was,
Is there a limit to the amount of data that you're pulling down when you're actually executing it?
is there a limit to the amount of data that you're pulling down when you actually execute it? So, like I said, the only limit is if you don't have a where clause. So if you have a where clause, whatever is in your where clause, like basically whatever result sets are in your SQL, that's all it's going to pull. So if you don't have a where clause, it's going to pull everything. If you have a where clause, it's only going to pull what's there. All right. All right. So let me see. And how did you get back to that screen where
Windows P.
Windows P? All right. Okay, other use cases. Rollback always rolls back. What I mean by that is some databases, you can issue a rollback command, but depending upon what other commands are above it, it may not actually roll back your data. Like for example, if you have some insert statements, then you have like a grant, alter, create table, those actually force commits. So if you want to make sure that that doesn't happen, you want to run this the simulator on it so that you can just make sure that your SQL is going to work the way you think it's going to work. Multi-script rollback is playing again on a little bit of the one with multiple developers. So if you have a situation where you have multiple people that are updating the database at one time, and you want to make it so that you basically push the entire update, all the updates at once. If anything fails, don't push any of them at all. So this gives you a chance to be able to do that. Whereas right now, as far as I know, if developer A, if his SQL works and developer B doesn't, developer A's SQL will be applied to the database, and then you're trying to scramble and figure out like what damage happened because everything didn't work. And then the last thing is like a pipeline. So basically, like for example, you have some code that is that's waiting on a database change or needs a database change, and for whatever reason that database change doesn't get there, but that code went to production. You want to make sure that you can set something up so that again, if the database isn't updated properly, that code doesn't get put out in production. Because I've had situations where now I didn't cause this, but the database update didn't go, and that production code went, and then it processed records for a few weeks before it was caught because it didn't cause any errors. It was more of like things weren't being calculated properly. So then that's several weeks of having to go back and fix it. All right. So I want to say a special thanks to Subash, Steve, Tripp, and Tommy for putting on this event. These guys do a great job. They do a lot of work, and I'm definitely appreciative of all you guys' hard work. And my contact info, my name's Weston Goodwin. My website is tribalknowledge.tech. I want to thank you guys for taking the time to listen to my presentation. And you guys take care. You guys have a good day. Thank you very much.
Weston, do you want to take questions?
Sure. Yes.
Here, does anyone have any questions for Weston? Going once. Does anyone have any data-related jokes? Because I got some data dad jokes.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. SQL query walks into a bar, sees 2 tables, and says, "Can I join you?"
Boo.
Thanks everyone for coming. All right.